Hi, my name is Rich, and this is a 4,000 mile review on my Juiced CCS. I got the bike around the 1st of April 2018. It's now July 2020. I keep track of the mileage on an aftermarket bike computer I bought soon after getting the bike, so it probably has a few more than the 4,000 miles the computer says. And for what it's worth, the wireless computer I bought from Specialized would not work due to electrical interference, so I exchanged it for a wired one, which works fine. I'm mostly going to talk about stuff that has happened since my 2,000 mile review. I'll post a link to that review at the end of this video. Bottom line, the bike is still running good. I removed the front fender. I was looping my cable lock through the front wheel when locking the bike up at school, and it eventually bent the plastic fender enough it was starting to rub on the tire, and I couldn't adjust it straight, so I just took it off. It hardly ever rains here in New Mexico anyway. I installed a new chain at 3,000 miles just because. It did measure a little worn, but I'm sure I could have got another 1,000 miles out of it. I put on new front brake pads, nothing unusual about that. In the last 200 to 300 miles, I started having a slight 1 per pedal revolution click from the area just around the bottom bracket. It only happens when pedaling under load. I'm hoping it's just a pedal, as they are the original ones, but I suspect it's coming from the bottom bracket. When I get the energy, I'll start doing some investigating, but it's just a minor annoyance for now. The hub motor. I live 1,000 feet above the city, so I make a lot of 1,000 foot climbs over a distance of 78 miles when I'm running errands around the city. On the uphill climb home, I typically set cruise at about 10 to 12 miles an hour and then pedal on top of that for an additional mile per hour or two. This gets some of the load off the motor and gives me more exercise. At about 3,600 miles, I thought the normal hub motor whirring noise might be getting a little louder, so I decided to re-grease it to see if it would make a difference. Did the job myself, wasn't too hard. I probably should have made a video of it. So for a couple hundred miles after that, it seemed to be a little quieter, but in the climb home, I can still hear it if I back off on the pedaling. It's also louder in hot weather. I don't think it's a problem, and greasing my motor may have just been some recreational maintenance. Also, Juiced has written somewhere that it does not recommend long, sustained cruise control or throttle-only climbs, especially by fat people like me. They say to pedal also, which I do. So, next, about 2 weeks ago, the cruise control stopped working. This is by far the most serious problem I think I've had on the bike. As I said, I use the cruise control a lot, so I wanted to fix it. I contacted Juiced technical support, but after a week now, they've been no help. They just keep asking for more info, most of which I'd already given them in previous emails. I did use some of their online generalized troubleshooting guides to try to fix it myself. I disconnected and cleaned all the easily accessible electrical connectors, like the 4-into-1 up by the steering head, and the motor and torque cadence sensor cables. I did it twice with electrical contact cleaner. I also cleaned and checked the gap of the cadence sensor to the 11-tooth cassette sprocket, as well as checking the torque on the 3 bolts. All checked good. Finally, after a ride to the local watering hole the other night, I had an idea. Before leaving for home, I disconnected both the screw-on brake electrical connectors to see if one might be sending an erroneous brake signal to the controller, which would not allow cruise to work. Instantly, on the way home, cruise worked perfectly. When I got home, I reconnected them one at a time to try to isolate the bad brake lever. But after finally reconnecting them both, cruise still worked perfectly as advertised. I can only guess that somehow the controller got a brake on signal stuck in it and wouldn't allow cruise to engage. When I disconnected the brake connectors, turned on the bike, rode it, and selected cruise, it somehow cleared it. I've done another 20 miles now just to test it, and I've selected cruise off and on many times, and so far it works perfectly. Just hope the problem doesn't come back. Another problem, the kickstand bolts came loose. I had to get down and tighten them. Oh, the humanity of it. So I've had almost no real significant problems in 4,000 miles. For comparison, in April 2019, I bought a $6,500 Specialized Turbo Levo Comp Carbon electric mountain bike. It's now July 2020 and it has 1,100 miles on it, almost all on the mountain trails behind my house. I love the bike, but I have had a couple of issues. When I turn it on, I occasionally get no power to the pedals and had to recycle the bike on and off several times to get it to work. They did a firmware update and it's been good since then. I've also broken one spoke on the rear wheel. But the biggest problem was the pawls in the cassette freewheel broke, meaning pedaling power could not be transmitted to the rear wheel. My local bike shop replaced them under warranty, but 3 weeks later they broke again. So that's 2 times I had to make a 3-mile push coast home, as it's a mid-drive bike with no throttle. Specialized finally sent me a whole new, updated, improved rear wheel under warranty, but that took 5 weeks to get as they screwed up the order twice. Fortunately, my LBS installed a loaner wheel for me so I could hit the trails. The reason I'm talking about this is to illustrate that even an e-bike that I spent almost 3 times the money on, and from one of the biggest bike names out there, had problems not only with reliability, but also customer support. So let's talk about security. As noted in my 2,000 mile ride review, I have what I feel are good security measures for the bike, and I think they bear repeating here. U-lock and cable. The U-lock, of course, goes around something secure, and the cable through the front wheel and the $200 thud buster seat post. That's a good first line of defense. I also have a Juiced beeping loud horn. I don't use it much as a horn because it's annoying and scares the little old ladies on the bike path, but I do use its motion detection feature all the time. It's sensitive, loud, and easy to set with a key fob, just like this. I also bought an IDEM LR1 combination tail light alarm. I don't ride in the dark much anymore, but I do use the motion sensitive feature of the alarm every time I lock the bike. Like the Juiced alarm, it's loud, sensitive, and has an easy to use wireless key fob, like this. The last beep means it's activated. So, with the horn alarm up here and the tail light alarm back there, if anybody tries moving the bike, it's going to make some noises. As you can see, they work. Final thing, and I think it's the best, is the motorcycle motion sensitive disc lock. Just Google that and you'll find a lot of them. It goes around your brake disc and makes the bike impossible to ride. One of the nice things about it is it's hidden behind my panniers. It's something the typical bike thief isn't looking for, meaning if he does try to ride away, he will be instantly surprised and confused when the bike won't move, and he might even fall over. And with 3 alarms blaring, he'll probably just decide to run away. Now you can see this thing back here under my pannier at the rear wheel. You can see how it nicely just bolts through the disc, locks it in place, And at the very worst, if you took a real hard pedal, maybe you might have to replace a brake disc, but it's better than losing your whole bike. And again, it'll start beeping also if when the alarm goes off. Now, how I lock my bike kind of depends upon the neighborhood or the store I'm in. When I go to school, I use them all, as the bike is locked up to 3 to 4 hours at a time while I'm at class. And bike theft is a real problem there. In a year and a half of riding to the university, I still have my bike. Now, if I'm up in a nicer neighborhood, going to a small store, like the other day I went into AutoZone, I'm only going to be in for a minute or two. I'll just put on the disc lock and activate the other two motion sensitive alarms. That way, you know, I'm the bike is parked right in front of the store. I'm right inside the store. If anybody messes with it, I can hear the alarms go off, and with the disc lock, they're not going anywhere. The only way somebody could steal the bike is to physically lift it up and put it in the back of a waiting pickup truck and drive it away. But they're going to do it with 3 alarms blaring. Additionally, they'll be surprised because I think with all of the tools and my books and everything that I've got in the bags, with the big battery, this bike probably weighs about 80 pounds. So I got a feeling I'd be out of the store before anybody could accomplish stealing the bike. It's a risk versus convenience trade-off that I make, because that disc alarm is just so easy to put on. Click, click, and it's done. Batteries. Again, I confirm the advice of buying the biggest battery you can. I've got a 21 amp hour 52 volt battery for my 28 mile school commute. I charge it to 85% and usually have 45 or 50% left when I get home. This should give me a battery life of about 1,500 charge cycles, probably more than I have left. I also acquired a 13 amp hour 48 volt battery for the shorter around town errands I run of 15 miles or less. This gives me a lot of options and allows me to get even more life out of the big battery. And just like Torah says, there's also a noticeable power difference between the 52 volt and 48 volt batteries, especially when fully charged. I also have the Grin Satiator charger, which came with the 21 amp hour battery and has proven to be handy, as besides the Juiced 52 volt and 48 volt batteries, I also have the 36 volt one on my Specialized Turbo Levo. I can charge any battery to any level I want with just one charger. So that's pretty convenient. So in conclusion, as I reported 2,000 miles ago, it's been a good, honest commuter. It's done everything I asked and everything advertised. I'm now 230 pounds, down from the 265 pounds when I got it. I typically get about 14 to 15 watt hours per mile. I've had no broken spokes, no dropped chains, and no flats. The last is probably due to the nice marathon tires I put on it just after I got it. It's been a good bike for me in over 2 years, and I've got no regrets buying it. Your mileage may vary. Thanks for listening.